Hey, folks, let's face it. After a night with drinks, I do not bounce back the next day like I used to. I'm not sure if I ever did, but it's certainly worse now. So I got to make a choice. I either have a night that involves drinking or I have a great next day. That is until I found Z-Biotics. Z-Biotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to help you feel better in the morning after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Z-Biotics produces an enzyme which breaks this byproduct down. All you got to do is make sure that Z-Biotics is your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly. You'll feel your best tomorrow. For instance, tonight we are doing coverage of the Republican National Convention. I am telling you right now, I'm going to drink. I also am telling you right now that sometimes it gets out of hand when you watch these things. I know right now I'm feeling it. I'm going to have a bottle. In fact, we got a whole bunch there for the entire crew. We're going to have a bottle of Z-Biotics before we start. And then tomorrow you're going to recognize that we're all looking pretty good, probably better than we will after tonight. Summer's in full swing. It's time to pack your calendar with fun activities. Go to zbiotics.com/majority. Get 15% off your first order when you use the code majority at checkout. You can also sign up for a subscription using my code so you can stay prepared no matter the time or occasion. Z-Biotics is backed with a 100% money back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/majority. Use the code majority at checkout, 15% off. Thank you, Z-Biotics, for sponsoring this episode and making it possible for us to do our Republican National Convention coverage and survive it the next day. Now for this show.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Wednesday, July 17th, 2024. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Sarah Jones, senior writer for the New Yorker magazine's Intelligencer section. On the billionaire's bootlicker, J.D. Vance, and everything he represents on the Republican ticket. Speaking of which, last night was day 2 of the Republican National Convention. And the theme of the night, Republicans of all and every stripe bow down to Donald Trump. New polling maintains embers of the dump Biden push. We'll report on that. Meanwhile, Biden considering major Supreme Court reforms and pitches 5% rent caps. Meanwhile, the Trump shooter is still an enigma, but his phone has now been cracked. Bob Menendez found guilty of 16 counts of corruption. Democrats push to expel him. And buoyed by tech billionaire cash, Donald Trump campaign claims to expand their electoral map into solidly blue states. Elon Musk announced he will move X to Texas because California schools cannot snitch on the pronouns kids use at school. Israel hits its 6th UN school and kills at least 42 in the past 10 days. Meanwhile, Kyiv pounded by the heaviest Russian bombardment it's seen in months. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much for joining us. Emma is off today. It is
until tonight.
And as such, it's not really Hump Day. I mean, Hump Day is not going to really happen for us until tonight.
Yeah, we got to do the math on it. When is the solar hump day?
Yeah, exactly. Lot of agita that I got these days, folks. So bear with me. People are already sending me the AP NORC poll out today. 65% of Democratic voters want Biden to drop out. And the irony is, I don't even know if Democratic voters want Trump to drop out as much.
Because we can beat him if we have somebody that.
Well, I think the point is the reason why people want Biden to drop out is because they don't want Trump to win.
538 has their new odds out, and apparently it's their best odds for Biden since May 10th. 54 times out of 100 he beats Trump versus 46 out of 100. Now they have pretty arcane way of weighting that, but just something to be said. I personally think Biden should still leave. I don't buy that at all.
I correct 80. I want to correct myself. 86% of Democrats want Trump to drop out. 65% want Biden to drop out.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what to tell you. I don't know if he will. We're reading stories that a lot of Democratic Congresspeople are contacting Nancy Pelosi, looking to Nancy Pelosi to do something about this. It's unclear to me whether what's going to happen. At one point, I imagine there's going to be a point. I don't know if that's when he becomes nominated. Jamie Harrison, the chair of the Democratic National Party, was on Twitter yesterday spending at least what it seemed to be several hours in a Twitter fight with Nate Silver. Just a reminder to everybody out there, including if you are the chairman of one of the two national parties that are involved in what I think is going to be the most consequential presidential election of my lifetime. That election's happening in 4 months. You should be able to find better things to do than to argue with Nate Silver on Twitter. If you feel like you need to argue with Nate Silver on Twitter to get your message out, I suggest that maybe you head down to your comms department and fire them all.
Had a spat with the Pod Johns over who wrote George Clooney's op-ed the other week.
The problem that we have now, and look, this is a function of the media to some extent as well. But the problem we have now is that the Biden campaign has one purpose, and it's to maintain the Biden campaign, when it really should be to defeat Donald Trump. Please do not say that part of the problem is this program, because Joe Biden has not listened to us in this, in any other forum or any other time. The problem started with the debate. So,
And even the people who were on Biden's side said, well, he's going to prove himself in the coming weeks. And that ain't happened.
I mean, I was one of those people. I was one of those people who said the debate strategy makes a lot of sense. Get Donald Trump out there as early as possible. I rated his State of the Union address one of the best I've ever seen. Put to bed all the questions about his capacity, because I don't think it's just about his age. There are 81-year-olds out there who are within our politics who have the ability to be agile on their feet, not literally, although literally too. But Biden just can't. He can't turn the ship, and he's getting worse even when he's reading off the teleprompter. I don't, and frankly, again, I don't care. I mean, I love all these proposals he's coming out with, but if he doesn't win, it doesn't make any difference anyways.
Two-thirds of Democrats want Biden to withdraw. Democrats overall, 35 to 65%. Even black Democrats, 50% to 49%. That's the best demographic breakdown he has. 50% to 49%.
We'll see. I mean, supposedly we'll know in the next week or two. And look, there's a lot of controversy around this question as to whether the DNC needs to do this early nomination process. That's what Jamie Harrison was fighting with Nate Silver about. I don't know. I mean, the arguments seem fairly legit on both sides. I do know they were planning to do this prior to the debate. I mean, we had talked about it. Even after Ohio had changed their law, they were still planning to do it prior to the debate. So I don't think there was any reason for them to be afraid that Joe Biden wasn't going to make it 3 weeks later in the nomination process prior to the debate. They may be, floating, pushing it up a little bit to close the window in which this question about Joe Biden is happening. But I think they just found it to be the most prudent thing possible to do it prior to the debate. We'll talk more about that later. And the reason why I'm so exercised about that is in part because of the threat that Donald Trump poses to this country. I think, honestly, the pick he picked last night represents perhaps the greatest threat of all the potential picks he could have had. Because it's not J.D. Vance who's coming in there. It's Peter Thiel.
Runs a private intelligence corporation, among other things.
It's both his ideology and where his business interest lies. We'll get that in a moment. I want to try and lighten the mood a little bit. And so let's play this clip from the RNC last night. This was, actually, this wasn't even at night, actually. This was in the afternoon. As you know, Rudy Giuliani just 2 days ago, I think it was on Monday, was told by a federal bankruptcy judge, I believe, that, yeah, no, we're not giving you bankruptcy protection so that you can get away with not paying off your debts and what you owe from your defamation case. And part of it, my understanding and reading briefly, part of the decision was just that the judge is like, you haven't complied with anything. Like he's disbarred, but he came in there and he's showing total disrespect to the court. And they're like, you know what, dude, if you can't supply the bankruptcy court with what you need to file for bankruptcy, why should we trust that you're going to take any part of this process? Go pay your debts. So as early as 4:37 in the afternoon, but I suspect it was probably earlier. Here is Rudy Giuliani trying to walk to his seat or check out or God knows what. Oh, there's my seat. Oh. Yep.
Yeah. You typically hate to see it, but when it's
Exactly.
a guy who has lived a life like Rudy Giuliani, you kind of waver.
And keep going. I want to just Let me be clear. I think it's mean to laugh at people who fall, and particularly, older folks. It can be very dangerous. But I'm not going to pretend like I don't think that Rudy Giuliani should embarrass himself publicly. And, I'm not going to wish any specific injury on anybody because I'm not a medical professional and I wouldn't know how to sort that out. But I don't know that I'm capable of feeling sympathetic for Rudy Giuliani.
Oh, I'm pretty sure I'm not.
And I want to say that goes back about 30 years. So enjoy that. And frankly, I think he was so wasted that he probably didn't even realize what was happening.
Yeah, no, that was, I don't think that was just vertigo.
In a moment, we're going to talk to Sarah Jones about J.D. Vance and what I think is the ascendance of not just a tech bro fascism, because I think there's also a theocratic element to this too. I can't quite.
Peter Thiel, we talked about, isn't the religious guy, but he's also the one who's like, dang, letting women have suffrage.
Yes.
Big problem.
Yes. And Vance is a Catholic convert, and he is of that sort of Blake Masters ilk. They both have this sort of like their feudalistic hierarchy also is part and parcel of the patriarchy. But we'll talk to Sarah Jones about that in a moment. First, a word from our sponsor. As you guys know, I am getting older. I feel like I've aged probably several years in the past couple of weeks.
It'll be in your Biden era pretty soon.
Yep. And I had mentioned this earlier. Years ago, Nutrafol came to us, said, do you want to sponsor us to sponsor you? I asked Michael, who was thinning a little bit on the top back at the time, do you want to engage in this? He was like, no. But I started to take it about a year or so ago because I felt like I was thinning on this side of my head. Not so much on this side, but on this side. And, I'm getting older. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement brand. Over 1 million people seeing thicker, stronger, faster growing hair with less shedding. You're going out into the sun and this and that, it damages your hair. Nutrafol hair growth supplements are physician formulated using 100% drug-free ingredients. Their patented technology provides consistent, reliable results without compromising your sex life. Contrary to a popular belief, that was important to me. While supplements rely solely on ingredient studies, the thing about Nutrafol is they clinically test their final formulations to ensure their efficacy. So they don't just look at the different ingredients. They literally take their finished product, they study it. In a clinical study, 84% of men showed improvement in their hair after 6 months taking Nutrafol's men hair growth supplements. You can take their hair wellness quiz on Nutrafol.com/men for a personalized hair health plan based upon your specific root causes, no pun intended. With Nutrafol, building a hair growth routine is simple. You purchase online. There's no prescription or doctor visit necessary. Free shipping, automated deliveries ensure you'll never miss a day. See results in 3 to 6 months. Take the first step towards achieving your hair growth goals. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping. When you go to Nutrafol.com/men, enter the promo code TMR. That's for The Majority Report. TMR. Find out why over 4,500 healthcare professionals and stylists recommend Nutrafol for healthier hair. Nutrafol.com/men, spelled Nutrafol.com/men. Promo code TMR. That's Nutrafol.com. Promo code TMR. Link in the YouTube and podcast descriptions. Quick break. Sarah Jones, senior writer for New York Magazine's Intelligencer section. We'll be right back. We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report. Emma Vigeland off today. Joining us now, Sarah Jones, senior writer for New York Magazine's Intelligencer section. Sarah, welcome to the program.
Thanks so much for having me.
You've written quite a bit about J.D. Vance, and you really hated his book.
I did.
I mean, you really hated his book, and I spared myself. I mean, I understand why you, as a magazine writer, probably had to read it. When it came out, somehow avoided not just reading it, but like I avoided most of the talk around him. I wasn't terribly interested. Let's just start with that. We'll go from there, sort of like he created an image for himself. I mean, there was some basis for it. But then let's go into his ideology, because in my estimation, and I had predicted that Trump would pick him basically because he comes with a lot of money. Mm-hmm. But my estimation, he is also the scariest of people to be vice president. But let's first start with his hillbilly memoir.
Right. So it came out in 2016, and very quickly it became, I think as Ezra Klein called it, the book of the election cycle, and Vance was everywhere. And I remember I was writing for the New Republic and was curious about it because I myself am from Appalachia, and it has hillbilly in the title, and everyone's talking about J.D. Vance. So what's this book about? And so I read it, and, it had gotten quite the rapturous response, I think, not just from conservatives, but from liberals in the press. And I was horrified by it. I thought it was deeply reactionary, repackaged some of the worst stereotypes about the working poor in general, but especially about Appalachia, where he spent summers as a child. I remember there's this one anecdote about Mountain Dew mouth in the region, and how, the hillbillies are just guzzling so much soda, they've rotted their teeth out. And they're very angry when you point that out. But to kind of illustrate the general thrust of the book, there is nothing about maybe access to dental care or poverty in the region and how that could be a factor in people's, dental issues. And that was really kind of carried through as a theme throughout the book.
We should say that he grew up in suburban Cincinnati, is my understanding. Right.
Yes.
And, and he summered in Appalachia, I guess. But this is sort of like classic libertarian. It's so quasi-libertarian and quasi movement conservatism, right? I mean, this is this is old school stuff, like pull yourself up by your bootstraps, personal responsibility type of stuff. This is Paul Ryan shaming, telling fake stories about kids showing up at school and getting free lunches and how it doesn't help them. They'd rather have a brown bag lunch. I mean, this is just sort of like repackaged pablum, but it just happened to be about A, in terms of the timing with the rise of Donald Trump, and B, about an area of the country that I think is has unique appeal, because it's always been for 100 years plus the lowest income part of the country. Right.
And to Vance, as you pointed out, I read it as a typical pull yourself up by your bootstraps narrative too. And it was mostly because it sort of treats poverty as the result of learned behaviors or an internalized pathology, which is a very old idea. We've heard it for a long time, not just from the right, but I think from liberals occasionally as well. And
The Moynihan report, for instance.
Exactly. And he's pushed back against that characterization of the book, but I don't put much stock in that myself.
All right. So he comes out, and we should say, when he writes this, where was he? Because he went to Yale Law School and he graduated in when did he graduate Yale Law School? Let's just give it like some of the bio, like his timeline, because I know he served in the military as a correspondent of sorts, and then does he go to law school after the military? And that's where he meets Peter Thiel.
He went to Ohio State for a couple years first, graduated early, I think in 2009, but I'm not entirely certain about that. And then he did go to Yale Law, and that's where he really gets plugged into this elite world that he's been part of ever since.
He approaches Peter Thiel, if I remember correctly, after a talk, and then goes up, and then ultimately gets a job with Peter Thiel in his venture capitalist outfit.
Right. And I think that's so telling. You come from this background, assuming, hillbilly elegy isn't embellished in any way. And what do? But you become a venture capitalist. Like, you're not doing public interest law or something like that. You immediately get plugged in with Peter Thiel, who's always been so hostile to the very notion of liberal democracy, to women's rights, to LGBT, you name it. So I think that's a really telling turn for J.D. Vance and kind of sets him up for where he proceeded to go from there.
Well, I mean, he would go the summers to Appalachia. Mm-hmm. He would learn about extraction and exploitation. And he didn't necessarily learn that it was bad. He sort of like more figured out how to go about it. That I find fascinating. All right. So, you write about, you have a piece yesterday, The Billionaire and the Bootlicker. Which one is J.D. Vance?
I imagined him as the bootlicker. I don't know if he's quite hit billionaire status just yet, though he's certainly quite wealthy.
Okay, so walk us through like J.D. Vance's turn. He is embraced by the liberal intelligentsia in 2016 because of his book. He is going to be the new breed of Republicans.
Right.
And then that doesn't work out.
No, it doesn't work out. So back in 2016, and I think through 2017, and then partly through 2018, I think 2018 is where this turn started to sort of happen. But he was a never Trumper. He was considered kind of a moderate Republican voice with a different view on economics than perhaps some of his peers in the Republican Party shared. And then, Hollywood made this movie about him. But I think by the time the movie had come out, he'd really started to make this turn toward Donald Trump. And I think was thinking about his political future, his future within the GOP. And that seemed to be where Trump was. And I think that's why you see him start to change his tune a little bit.
Talk a little bit about his relationship with Peter Thiel and sort of like his ideology, because there's a wonderful moment we played with when he went down to the picket lines outside of Cincinnati, and Marcy Kaptur said, "Your first time here?" And he's like, "Yep." And she's like, "Okay, well, thank you for showing me." Point being, he knows, like, he's quite good at putting his finger up in the air and knowing where he has to go. And but he was really sort of like Tucker Carlson, Elon Musk, and Peter Thiel seem to be the guys who have been like his doulas into this vice presidency. Give us a sense of what's going on there.
Yeah, I think there was some reporting in the New York Times to that effect, that a lot of these tech guys were among some of his biggest backers. And it's no surprise, really. As you said, he did work for Peter Thiel at Mithril Capital as a venture capitalist. Thiel blurbed the book, was a big supporter of Vance, has been for years. And I think that's quite telling if you know anything about Peter Thiel's politics. I think I described him as a liberal just now, and I think maybe that's understating it quite a bit.
Peter Thiel is illiberal in, there's a wonderful piece from just a couple of years ago that John Gantz wrote, The Enigma of Peter Thiel. And then the subheading is, there is no enigma. He's a fascist.
Yeah.
This guy is, let me read a couple of quotes about Peter Thiel. In an essay for the Cato Institute, Thiel once wrote, quote, "I no longer believe that freedom and democracy are compatible." He goes on to say, if you empower the demos, it'll eventually vote for restrictions on the power of capitalists. He writes, quote, "Since 1920, the vast increase in welfare beneficiaries and the extension of the franchise to women, two constituencies that are notoriously tough for libertarians, have rendered the notion of capitalist democracy into an oxymoron." He really has a problem, Peter Thiel does, with women, about 50% of the population, as a baseline, participating in the governance of the country or a society, because it inhibits people like him's ability to make more money.
Right. It's totally about raw power for him. And if women are getting in the way of what he wants to do and his wealth and the way he wants to see society transform, then I think he's more than happy to deny them the franchise. Speaking of Peter Thiel, and if you look at what J.D. Vance has said about women and working women in particular, I don't know if he shares all of Peter Thiel's views, but certainly there's a lot to be worried about.
Oh, you know what? We have some clips. Shall
Great.
we watch them together?
Yes.
Of J.D. Vance. He's got some issues regarding abortion. We can get into that. But let's. Here's one. This one I think gives you a sense of like how much freedom he believes that women should have in a society. This is in 2021. He's at a high school in Southern California, at the Pacifica Christian High School. This is the other sort of like I think, appreciated aspect of Vance. We just had Brad Onishi on, and we were talking about the Supreme Court. And the Christian conservatism on the Supreme Court, the most radical Christian conservatism, the most theocratic in some ways, is from the fundamentalist Catholics on the Supreme Court. I don't know too much about this. I do know that Vance is a converted to Catholicism, but he really has that air of fundamental Catholicism around him, as evidenced in this 2021 interview.
And this is one of the great tricks that I think the sexual revolution pulled on the American populace, which is this idea that these marriages were fundamentally, they were maybe even violent, but certainly they were unhappy. And so getting rid of them and making it easier for people to shift spouses like they change their underwear, that's going to make people happier in the long term. And maybe it worked out for the moms and dads, though I'm skeptical, but it really didn't work out for the kids of those marriages. And I think that's what all of us.
Okay, let's break that down, because first off, and I have, based upon my own personal experience, have read extensively about the implications for children in these situations. He's wrong in terms of the data. Just flat out wrong. But aside from that, what do you sense motivates that perspective if there is no data behind it?
I think it's definitely a very strong commitment to traditional gender norms and this idea. If you look closely at kind of things that he said in the past and read in between the lines here and there, I think even though he's married to a woman who works, is quite skeptical of women in the workforce and is very supportive of this notion that, there should be a parent staying at home, and very often who is filling that role, it's women. And I think he's really hostile to the idea of feminism in particular, but, sort of broadly the notion of progress for women that's sort of seen them enter the workforce in greater numbers.
Yeah, this idea that women can get divorced. This is Steven Crowder territory we're going into, but the idea that women can get divorced. And I should remind people that, I'm old enough that when I was born, my mother was more or less chattel in regards to my father. The idea that women can get divorced and leave what he called either a violent or unhappy situation was problematic in some way. And to be clear, the data is absolutely clear on this. In an unhappy marriage, particularly if there's violence, you get the kids out, period, end of story, in terms of their development going forward. So this is motivated by a notion of the way society should be structured, without a doubt. Let's talk about his stance on abortion. Here he is in an interview with a local news network in Columbus, Ohio. This is back in September 2021. This must be around the time where he decides, because we got a lot of footage from this era, where he decides, like, I've got to let my freak flag fly here because this is where the future of the party is. And incidentally, it's also in that New York Times piece when Peter Thiel took Vance down to Mar-a-Lago and said, we got to patch things up with Donald Trump because it looks like he may be running again. Here is J.D. Vance with that local Columbus news station in 2021, Spectrum News 1.
I think two wrongs don't make a right. At the end of the day, we're talking about an unborn baby. What kind of society do we want to have? A society that
Pause it
looks
for 1
at
second.
unborn
I'm sorry.
babies.
I should say he's talking about whether there should be an exception in the case of rape on abortion. That's why he starts off and incest. That's why he starts off with two wrongs don't make a right.
Right.
Born baby. What kind of society do we want to have? A society that looks at unborn babies as inconveniences to be discarded?
Should a woman be forced to carry a child to term after she has been the victim of incest or rape?
Look, my view on this has been very clear, and I think the question betrays a certain presumption that's wrong. It's not whether a woman should be forced to bring a child to term, it's whether a child should be allowed to live, even though the circumstances of that child's birth are somehow inconvenient or a problem to the society. The question really to me is about the baby. We want women to have opportunities, we want women to have choices, but above all, we want women and young boys in the womb to have the right to life.
Women and young boys in the womb? Sarah, I know you're not a doctor.
No.
But are women in a womb? Are young boys even in a womb? I mean, they're fetuses.
Right.
I mean, neither one of us are doctors, but I'm quite confident that assertion holds up. This guy wants a total abortion ban. Here is his website as of 2 days ago. End abortion. I am 100% pro-life. Pop this up, Matt. Pro-life and believe that abortion has turned our society into a place where we see children as an inconvenience thrown away rather than blessing to be nurtured. Eliminating abortion is first and foremost about protecting the unborn, but it's also about making our society more pro-child and pro-family. Seems to me that you could do the pro-child and pro-family thing regardless of abortion. The historic Dobbs decision puts a new era of society into motion, one that prioritizes family and the sanctity of all life. For some reason, he took that down in the past day.
Yes.
We also, and we have this clip, we'll play it later tonight maybe, but he was interviewed in the New York Times where he said in this interview, although the Times didn't use it in their write-up of the interview, but they did it in the interview, he said that we need a baseline in regarding abortion for all the states. And that is an abortion ban. It's unclear what the details would be. So let me ask you this lastly as a perspective on it. I feel like to some extent, like, what do you make of Donald Trump picking this guy? Yeah,
I think that's an interesting way to kind of look at it, because there were good arguments against picking J.D. Vance. I don't think he brings a lot to the table in terms of electoral politics or political experience. He doesn't shore up the evangelical vote for Trump. But then again, Trump doesn't need anyone to shore up the evangelical vote for himself anymore, because he can say he overturned Roe. So I think picking Vance is, first of all, kind of Trump doubling down. I don't need to prove anything to anybody. And secondly, it's an ideological signal. And that's what really concerns me, because I think it could be a harbinger of what policies we can come to expect from a second Trump administration. You know, the architects of Project 2025 have spoken quite positively of Vance, have praised him. And while Trump and his campaign have tried to move away from Project 2025 and say, look, we don't endorse this, it's just not an accurate description of how the project came to be or of the Trump campaign's connections to it. So thinking about the future and what we can expect, I think there's a lot to be worried about.
And I think Vance is on record saying that the Heritage Foundation writes all his policy ideas, something to that effect. I have two other answers to that question that I would add to your response. One is an interesting anecdote from that New York Times piece is Tucker Carlson made the pitch that if you get somebody on there who is pro invasion, or I would say pro helping Ukraine in their invasion against their invasion from Russia, it will make him a target for the deep state, because the neocons will want to get rid of him. Trump seems like the type of person who could believe that. But I have another more simple answer, because I think all of the points you make are correct. But I would say it's just this. That's it. He knew that there were literally, overnight, because I'm quite convinced that Elon Musk was waiting for the Vance announcement, and then the assassination attempt happened, and he decided to deploy then. But Musk sounds like he's on the hook for close to $300 million in the Trump coffers. Peter Thiel put $15 million into Vance's Senate race that we know of, right? Not in terms of dark money. Peter Thiel can deploy several $100 million without blinking at it. And Andreessen and Horowitz, other billionaires, tech billionaires, they're going to do the same. And there's going to be a ton of crypto money that comes in too because of Vance. Overnight, by picking Vance, Trump just added about $500 million plus to his campaign balance sheet. And I think that for a guy like Donald Trump, that seems pretty compelling. Mm-hmm. Sarah Jones, thanks so much for your time today. We will link to all of your pieces on J.D. Vance. I personally of the mind that Vance represents, because of who put him there, represents an even greater threat than Donald Trump ultimately. Donald Trump, I think, is like the appetizer. And Steve Bannon has said this about Donald Trump without ever pointing to J.D. Vance. But I think that J.D. Vance and the people he's going to bring into the White House represent a really scary future for the country. Sarah Jones, thanks so much again.
Thank you.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break. Head into the fun half. We may go a little short today, like as in just do 2 hours for the show, which is just absurd anyways. The show started off, it was supposed to be 45 minutes in the first half, 45 minutes in the second half, and there's been mission creep over the past 14 years.
Someone take a stopwatch and start it at 2 p.m. today, see how far we go beyond that.
Matt's a little skeptical.
A little bit cynical these days.
Yeah. A little bit cynical. LA Times reporting that Adam Schiff has called Joe Biden to drop out. This is it right here. Today, tomorrow, Friday, through the weekend, I would say Tuesday or Wednesday of next week. If Joe Biden is still the nominee in a week, then he will be the nominee. But I have a feeling this is go time. Schiff is doing this at the behest of Pelosi. He probably he's doing it at behest of others, but this is coordinated. There's a letter going to go out today, if it hasn't already, calling on the DNC to slow their roll in terms of this nomination process. And we're going to see what happens as people start to come out publicly and speak. And look, the last place I ever want to be is with Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi and Matt Iglesias and Jonathan Chait. And,
against Bernie.
And the Pod Save crew. And I don't know. Maybe we'll have a guest on Friday that we can talk about this, because there has been also a bet by the progressives that has been placed, and the thing is, it's one of those bets that like they can't really lose. So it's probably a good bet, but we'll talk about that later in the week. Andrew from DC. I think Mark Cuban makes a good point that the reason these SV goons are pouring money into Trump right now is a Bitcoin play. Loosen regulations, lower taxes on heightened tariffs, weakens the dollar for working people, and an absolute boom for capital. Makes too much. No, 100%. Look, from a financial standpoint, it is a Bitcoin. It is all crypto. Like crypto, when JD Vance, go take a look at what crypto is. Go to like one of those things like Coinbase or whatever. I haven't checked it, to be honest with you, but there's no doubt in my mind, crypto went through the roof the moment JD Vance was announced. There's a couple of industries. I would imagine for-profit universities also pops up a little bit, but we'll see.
My main thing is I'm hoping the AI bubble waits until Trump is in office to pop, which it's going to do.
It might, but the other irony is that the economy looks like it's about to just sort of like soar. They're going to drop interest rates in September. Rents have finally stabilized. Inflation continues to drop. Job market seems to have stabilized, still relatively strong. And Donald Trump very likely could be the beneficiary of this. He was, to some extent, after Obama as well. They finally took 8 years to dig out of the financial crisis. In large part, it took so long because Obama just didn't spend enough. Monkey business. Are you kidding me? The bet the progressives are making is one they can't win. Worst case scenario, they've tied themselves and the progressive agenda to a Biden loss in November. If Biden loses in November, no one's going to say it's because of the progressive agenda that he introduced in July. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. I think it'll be Gaza.
It'll be his age.
And also Hillary ran insanely. Presidents always run progressive, and then
well, first of all,
it
is completely against. Yeah, it's fascinating because we always hear they're going to attack to the center, and Biden's saving himself, at least in his mind, by rolling out some progressive initiatives.
But that's because he's still fighting the primary.
Yes, the problem is it's not going to have the impact that anybody wants it to, because there is one reason why Joe Biden will be, if he loses, and if he loses, it's because he cannot perform the basic functions of campaigning. It's not because of his record. I don't even think it would be necessarily because of Gaza, although I wish more people cared about it. It's going to be because he cannot perform the basic functions of campaigning. So just the monkey business, best case scenario they have is a bunch of IOUs from a second-term Biden who has publicly lost the political support of most of his party. No, see, I disagree with this. The reason why people want Biden out is not because they are withdrawing their political support of him. They don't believe he can beat Trump. If he beats Trump, he's going to be there. Everybody's going to be like, I was wrong. You were right. And Biden's going to have articulated this agenda. And look, there really is no reason to believe that he's not going to at least attempt to follow through on these things. I mean, he said he was only going to do $10,000 per person on college debt relief. He has certainly attempted iterations of that. You can argue the first time around he didn't do it on the right authority, but the second time around he did. He's still being thwarted. But if you look at things like judges, if you look at things like antitrust, you look at things like labor, you look at things like the LNG export.
I mean, he's going to need to filibuster to get rid of the filibuster. I mean, that's the thing is, like, even if he was talking like that, though, like, I just, it's not really falling on my ears super welcome because I don't think he can get margins.
Well, we don't think that he can win.
Exactly.
Listen, there is value in setting an agenda, even if you don't achieve that, because it starts to create a baseline for what constitutes democratic politics. If he wins after doing this, despite the fact that in July, when he starts offering these programs, 65% of the Democratic Party wants him out. Something's going to get credit for it. And it's not because he got younger, I can assure you. And I can tell you right now, personal experience, there's no cocktail they're going to make for Joe Biden that is going to change the direction of where he's headed. This is a one-way street. This isn't recovering from a stroke. So, I mean, it's the only possible loss in terms of like the progressives here, and it's not going to hinder them, is that it keeps Biden in the race, their support. And to some extent, it probably does. All right. So much for going into the fun half early. Good job, everybody. I'm too agitated. We're going to end up going to like 5, and then we'll just start the coverage of the folks. It's your support that allows this show to survive and thrive, and keeps me in enough CBD so that I don't do something that we're all going to regret.
Destroying the set probably would go viral, though. Just throwing it out there. We'll keep the
camera
running.
Maybe if we get a GoFundMe. You can help support this program by going to jointhemajorityreport.com and becoming a sustaining member. You can also help this show by passing our clips around, by giving us a good review on iTunes, by giving us your Prime subscription. Instead of using Prime for Prime Day, which the Senate recently realized increases worker-related injuries, use your Prime account to support this program. Don't cost you anything. You already paid for it. You can dedicate that on Twitch. Tell your kids that we're on TikTok. We stream live on TikTok now.
We are record. We were at like 180. We're at 140 now. 152. 50 new followers on TikTok. So yeah, having a good day over on TikTok.
Spread the word on TikTok. Maybe we'll put up some type of meme ad or something that people can spread around on TikTok. And of course, you can get our 20th anniversary merchandise at shop.majorityreportradio. You can't see the logo on there, but it's pretty cool.
Oh, look at that, a hype train on Twitch.
We got a hype train on Twitch. It's all happening. Also, don't forget justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, hot chocolate. It's a co-op, all employee owned. They take really good care of their suppliers. They go to incredible lengths to take care of the farmers down in the Zapatista region and in parts of Africa. JustCoffee.coop. Use the coupon code majority, get 10% off. Get the Majority Report blend. What's happening on ESPN?
On Monday, Emma and I discussed the upcoming Summer Olympics, as well as, and we wrapped up some of the coverage of the Copa America and Euro soccer tournaments, and we also discussed some sports luminaries like Bob Costas and Charles Barkley, also weighing in on the whether Biden should stay in the race discourse. So youtube.com/ESPN show if you'd like to check that out. And check out some of our clips as well. And we will be back next Monday at 4 p.m.
And Left Reckoning last night, kind of similar to the topic of the show tonight, we had Jacob Silverman on to talk about J.D. Vance, Elon Musk, and all these venture capitalists who are sort of the modern nabobs or nabobs, who were guys who made a bunch of money in the colonial East India Company and became a political problem for Brits at home. That's kind of like our venture capitalists. Overly moneyed, didn't really do anything productive for the world, including a lot of bad things to the world, and now they get to buy politicians. So check that out, patreon.com/leftreckoning.
See you in the fun half. 646-257-3920. We'll try and take some phone calls because we'll do some clips tonight. 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 9 months from now. And I don't think it's going to be the same as it looks like in 6 months from now. And I don't know if it's necessarily going to be better 6 months from now than it is 3 months from now. But I think around 18 months out, we're going to look back and go like, wow. What is that going on? It's nuts. Wait a second. Hold on for a second.
The Majority Report.
Emma, welcome to the program.
Hey.
Matt.
What is up, everyone?
Nomi Key.
You did it. Let's go, Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon.
Bradley, you want to say hello?
Sorry to disappoint everyone. I'm just a random guy.
It's all the boys today.
Fundamentally false. No, I'm sorry. Women's.
Stop talking for a second and let me finish.
Where is this coming from, dude?
But dude, you want to smoke this 7A?
Yes.